Hey guys, today I'm speaking with a global retail expert and I'm asking him if retail is dead. Hi, this is Erez and welcome to my YouTube channel where my goal is to help you become a better real estate investor. I'll be posting a weekly video, so if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. So today I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Andrew Strenk, who is a global retail expert, and he's traveled all over the world. He's walked more than 10,000 shopping centers all over the world. He knows what the tendencies are. He's all the time speaking with different retailers, with different experts, with different consultants. If you want to learn something about retail, make sure to tune in this video and watch his expertise. He has a company called Strategic Planning Concepts International. Be sure to check out his website. It's www.spcintl.net. We'll put it down below so you can check him out and his company. But this guy has helped me so much in my career. He's a true expert and he's somebody who cares about adding massive value to the community, to the developers, to every stakeholder. So make sure that you listen to him. So without further ado, Andrew. We've been hearing a lot about the demise of retail and the fact that there's all these retailers dying out. You know, it seems like every few weeks we're hearing about a new one going bankrupt. What do you think in general that's going on in the shopping center industry and the retail industry today all around the world?
This is a topic of a lot of debate. There's certainly a lot of change. Retail's not dead, it's not dying. I would argue that retail is probably having its most exciting era ever, but if you read the media headlines, you might not immediately have that conclusion because you read about a lot of bankruptcies, a lot of stores going dead, a lot of department stores either dying or struggling. Sears, after sort of a 50-year death spiral, has finally hit the wall, but many of the other department stores are struggling as well. Many of the big boxes that used to anchor power centers are downsizing or are going bankrupt. We're seeing a lot of specialty stores die. I mean, Coldwater Creek went away, Limited went away, American Apparel, Wet Seal. It's a very, very long list of stores that have gone out of business. And one could say, gee, this seems like the retail apocalypse, that retail as we know it is dying and there is no future in retail. I would argue that maybe a better analogy is we're in the middle of a Darwinian Gale, sort of a super force 6 hurricane way beyond level 5, and this is restructuring and reorganizing the community globally, not just in North America or the USA. And so there are opportunities, there are challenges, there's change, but there's also opportunities. So I find it kind of an exciting period for retail, even though it often is frustrating and aggravating and confusing, but that's all part of the package. I find it really exciting, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in the retail world. But one little comment, it's not for the faint of heart. If you want to sleep well at night, maybe retail is not the asset category for you. You have to like adventure, you have to like challenge, you have to be willing to change, you better be creative, you better be innovative, you better be aware of what's happening globally, not just in your little neighborhood.
Great, thanks. So you mentioned opportunities. There's several different types of shopping centers. Which one do you feel like is the most resilient to all the changes that are going on now?
Maybe a format we haven't invented yet. Classically, Erez, we had the 4 traditional ICSC categories of shopping centers. You had the neighborhood shopping center, which was generally anchored by a supermarket. Maybe it had a pharmacy. You had a community shopping center, which was usually anchored by a hypermarket or a junior department store, and usually had another anchor at the other end, which might be a Marshall's or an Office Depot, might have been a multiplex cinema, but usually there was some mid-sized box at the other end of the project. You had the fashion mall that's sort of invented by Victor Gruen in the 50s, with department stores, usually indoor and enclosed, but not always, with specialty stores in the middle. And the super regional fashion mall, which we like to say was the fashion mall on steroids, where you had 4, 5, 6, 7, and maybe even sometimes 8 department stores. And for a long time, Into the 80s, those were our four choices. If you were a retail developer, you did one of those four. We got the power centers coming along in the late 1980s, which were sort of the outcasts from the regional fashion mall. In the 80s, we went through this evolutionary period where many of the leading retail developers at the time decided to throw out all of the uses that were not fashion oriented. So electronics was thrown out, and home goods were thrown out, and bookstores were thrown out. And where did all these go? Well, they went into power centers. We had the Metro 280 Center. I think a lot of people think was the first power center in the U.S. anyway. And that was developed in Northern California. And so we had all these big boxes, Toys R Us and Best Buy and Sports Authority, and basically forming up to create the power center. There wasn't much connectivity. There was very little cross-shopping. If the average person at a regional fashion mall visited 7 or 8 or 9 stores in a visit, at a power center it was like 1.1. People pretty much went to one of the big boxes, Target or Walmart, Costco, Home Depot, whatever, and then they left. And maybe if there's a McDonald's and a pad, they'd visit that and then they'd be gone as well. We got into the 1990s, and there was sort of a reinvention of a prototype that had come out in the 20s with J.C. Nichols, the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City, but the town center. But that never really kind of caught on very much. It remained sort of a one-off product type for a long time, but we had Easton Town Center, which was sort of the reinvention of the town center. And then that spread very rapidly around the U.S. and other parts of the world, which was an attempt to recreate the ambiance and the feeling of a downtown area. Take the roof off, let in natural light, more landscaping, better signage, more interesting facades. That gave developers another option. Parallel to that, we had the development of a lifestyle center. It was very similar to a town center, but generally was not two-level. Generally was smaller, often very focused on home goods, and what they called lifestyle brands back then in the 1990s. Today, almost every retailer likes to think that they have a lifestyle brand. Back there in the 90s, when you labeled yourself as a lifestyle brand, you were actually part of a very small group. And developers would collect those, quote, lifestyle brands together and create a, quote, lifestyle center. Along the way, in the 70s, we had the beginnings of the outlet centers. They were kind of following a parallel track, but they weren't really a popular format for a long time because the image was, well, the product there at an outlet center, it's seconds, it's rejects, it's misfits, it's clothing that's missing buttons or zippers, or it's got problems. Well, that was in the beginning, but they evolved. A lot of outlets now have brands that manufacture clothing and shoes specifically for that industry. It's no longer rejects or stuff that didn't sell in department stores. So that's a model that's still out there today. I could go on for a long time. There's probably 20 different types of shopping centers. If you want to develop a shopping center, and people ask me, I want to do a shopping center. My first question is, okay, great, what kind of shopping center? And many times that's the end of the conversation because they haven't thought about the next step, just that they want retail because it sounds glamorous. There's many different formats, but the traditional legacy formats are not proving to be very future-proof, and that's your neighborhood shopping center, your community center, your fashion mall, and your super regional fashion mall. It's probably obvious that the big boys, the fashion malls and the regional fashion malls are in trouble because department stores are crashing and burning, and many of them are struggling, and even those that aren't struggling, they're not the draw that they used to be. They don't pull the foot traffic, what we call. They're not people pumps. They're not pulling in the number of customers that they used to do that justified their privileged position and their low rents. And in many cases, the anchors in a project now are much smaller stores that are not at the ends of the project, that are actually the economic motors for the shopping center. So we're not building regional fashion malls in the U.S. anymore. I think there's been something like one in the last 10 years, and most people don't expect to see any in the future. Super regionals, they are also getting smaller in terms of numbers out there in the market. Power centers, we're seeing fewer of those. We're still seeing some community and neighborhood centers being built in master planned communities. I don't know about the lifespan of these because as new technology continues to debut and as you're going to have everything in your house will be Bluetooth enabled and 5G speed connected to your stores, your refrigerator is going to talk to your warehouse and order your food for your pantry and for your refrigerator, and you're not going to be going to the grocery store anymore. And so you have to think about what happens to the neighborhood shopping center. If people aren't going to buy groceries anymore, are they going to visit any of the other smaller stores in the neighborhood center? Many analysts don't think so. What about the new formats? Town centers would seem to have a longer lifespan. Why? Well, because they're offering an extra dimension. They're offering, it's defined in many ways, what we would call this extra experience. Going to a town center generally is not about buying stuff or just buying merchandise. It's about an experience above and beyond just acquiring more stuff and more merchandising. Everybody carries a shopping center around in their pocket today. It's their cell phone. So do they have to actually go to a physical environment? No, they can stay at home, be at the office, dial it up, and Amazon or another delivery service can deliver it to wherever they want it delivered. They don't physically need to go to a shopping center. So why would you go to a shopping center? Well, you would go not because of the merchandise, because you can pretty much order everything online today, but you would go for an experience you can't have. You can't have a social experience with your family if you're looking at a laptop or a tablet or your cell phone. If you want to interface with your family or your friends or your neighbors, your children, your parents, or meet some new people and actually have a deeper connectivity than you can online, you have to go someplace to do that. And shopping centers, those that are designed properly and have the right kind of ambiance and environment, offer that meeting. Another new product type we're starting to see out there, and there's a lot of variations of that, the concept center, where these are almost what we would call the anti-mall. They're trying to be the un-mall. They're trying to be as different from, let's say, a South Coast Plaza or a King of Prussia or Aventura Mall, Roosevelt Field, as different as they can possibly be. So we have things like the Lab and the camp in Costa Mesa. If you go to Berlin, there's a project called Bikini Berlin. We're seeing a lot of experimentation here where there's sort of a mixture in these projects of new brands that are not your legacy brands. A lot of new food and beverage concepts mixed in with pop-ups, mixed in with food trucks, mixed in with a lot of temporary inline retail. It's sort of a mix and match, rapidly changing environment. In Bikini Berlin, a very, very large number of the tenants there are pop-ups, and they're there on short-term leases. The longest lease for a pop-up there might be 12 months, but most of them are there on 3 months or even less. Why would you even want to do that? Well, it's a lot of novelty. Today's customer, particularly the younger ones, are more easily bored than their parents or their grandparents. They don't want to keep going back to the same old project and seeing the same old stores, the same old brands, the same old merchandise. And a lot of these concept malls now are trying to cater to that by turning over the tenants and turning over the merchandise, turning over the experience for the visitor. And yes, if you have a new experience every time you go, you probably will go there more frequently. Still a lot of innovation going on. I could talk about this, but I know you have a lot of questions to ask me, so let's move on.
Okay, great. But this is all very good info for the viewer, especially those who are involved in retail. And as you and I have discussed, the shopping center industry is a very important industry, but there's so much overlap between today retail, hospitality, residential, etc. But just going back to some of the things you were saying, really real estate is a cyclical business, right? And it seems like every 15 years, or at least research shows that about every 15 years, there is about 2 years where people have a lot of hardships, and it's a very tough time to get financing from banks and lenders. It's a very tough time to raise equity. So every 2 years, between 15 years, there's a tough time. But it seems that research shows that during this time, grocery-anchored neighborhood centers are those that within the retail space have performed better. However, what you're saying is that going forward, for those viewers who do own grocery anchored neighborhood centers, these types of power centers, community centers, etc., basically service oriented shopping centers, you're saying that they are going to struggle.
I think so. Other people may debate our conclusions, but let's look at technology. What's driving a lot of change? We've talked about the change in the retail industry. Well, why? You could say, why does anything change? It doesn't have to. It's technology. I'm sure our listeners have heard about Moore's Law, that more or less it's articulated a number of different ways, but the computational power of a transistor is kind of doubling more or less every 9 months to 12 months, and that's been going on since the early 60s. Well, that's hard to imagine. How does that play out in the real world? Well, if we had a car from that same period of time, pick any car you want from the early 60s, and we applied Moore's Law to it today, we'd have a car that would be able to drive at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And it would be able to drive 500,000 miles on a gallon. And that gas would cost us like 1/4 cent. And obviously that's not the case if you have an automobile today. But that's Moore's Law, that's how it's impacted the power of computing. And as we've gone from these giant UNIVAC computers that filled a room larger than this, and then we went to mainframe computers, and then we went to desktop and laptop, and now most people's cell phones have more computational power than computers did a few years ago. This is ongoing. Well, this impact isn't just on computers. It's also on people's shopping behaviors. It used to be very difficult as a customer to be able to know what was happening in the rest of the world. You had to physically get in your car and drive to a shopping center and look at the items and look at the price tags to see, well, what's the price? And then if you didn't like the price, you had to get in your car and go to another shopping center or walk down to another store and look at the prices there. And it would take all day to look at a few items for just, let's say, a shirt. Well, look at where we are today. With your cell phone, you can instantly go online and you can look at every possible brand of shirt by every possible manufacturer, every possible style and color and design and logo and price, and see where it's sold and decide which store you want to go to, or you can order it online. So the customer is become king. Instead of being sort of at the bottom, the customer now is on the top, because the customer has all this information that they didn't used to have. And the development community has kind of responded, most components have responded more slowly to this. The customer can change faster than bricks and mortar today. I'm a customer, I can decide from the day tomorrow that I'm going to eat something different, buy something different, do something different. But you, as a shopping center owner, you can't, you've got all these 20-year leases. You can't all of a sudden decide that because no one wants to shop at brand X anymore in the project, that unless you have a really good contract and you have great termination clauses, you can't just instantly, from today to tomorrow, change the tenant in your project. But the customer can decide, oh, I'm not going to Erez's project anymore because I don't like the brand, I'm going over here. And where are you? So the customer has so much more information today, that's only going to increase in the future. It gives them, they're the king of the mountain now. Instead of being at the bottom, they're at the top. And those retailers that have adjusted to that are doing well. So yes, we're maybe in what looks like a retail apocalypse right now, with a lot of legacy brands dying and going bankrupt or heavily in debt. But Inditex is really doing well. H&M has been doing well. Forever 21, Uniqlo, Primark, Topshop, the so-called fast fashion. But also, IKEA is doing well, and Apple is doing well, and there are Nike. There are other brands out there that are not fast fashion necessarily that are doing well today. But all of these are considered to be disruptors. Why are they disruptors? Because they're responding to the consumer. They're not doing the same old things the same old way with the same old operating plans, the same old logistical supply chains. They have upgraded and updated and improved and brought in new technology to respond to the consumer. So a lot of these stores now, they change the merchandise every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks? Why would you want to do that? What's wrong with the old system of spring, summer, fall, and winter, which so many of the department stores are married to? Some of them are still married to it today. Well, the customer doesn't want to go back month after month and see the same merchandise. They want to see new things. And those retailers that are able to get new product in on a frequent interval in their stores, they're doing well. So we have a lot of fast fashion retailers today that every 2 weeks, they got new merchandise in the store. And that brings people into the store. And because they know that it's not going to be there forever, it's sort of, you better buy it today. It may not be there tomorrow. It certainly won't be there next week. So some participants in the retail world have adapted quite well to change. Those that have been slow to change are struggling, and those that didn't change at all are in the retail graveyard, and you can read about them in the history books.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, let's give the viewer here a chance to succeed, and hopefully not scare them off too much, to the retail world, because you and I know that there is a lot of great opportunities also in retail, and we're both enthusiasts of retail. So as we look at this space, let's look at, you've traveled the world. You've seen shopping centers in many different continents and all these different formats that you discuss. Could you tell us one of your favorite shopping centers and why? Meaning why? Is it because of the location? Is it because of the amazing design? Is it because it has a fabulous tenant mix? Is it because it's surrounded by a very wealthy market? Is it because it has really great operations, with tons of events all the time? Which one would you say is your favorite shopping center, if you have only one, or one of your favorite shopping centers, and what makes this place so unique and so successful?
Good question. Well, I know the audience, many of the people in the audience probably don't know me. It's like, who is this guy? Why does he know anything about shopping centers? I would have the response, those of you that are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell and the tipping point, I would say, well, if you live long enough to be able to visit 10,000 shopping centers, and you can go to 10,000 conferences and conventions about shopping centers, and you talk to 10,000 owners of stores in shopping centers, after a while you do learn a little bit. So out of all the centers that I've visited, what's my favorite center? I have a shorter list of favorite centers, but let's pick one that's in our neighborhood that I think has a lot of factors that any developer who's thinking about wanting to do retail should pay close attention to, and that would be Rick Caruso's The Grove in Los Angeles. It's very easy to go to The Grove today. We had some clients who were there recently, and they were amazed. It was raining. I realized California, does it ever rain in California? No, it never rains in California. Once in a while. But they were there on one of the rare days when it does rain, and they were astounded that the project was a midweek, Tuesday morning, not necessarily a high point of shopping for many centers. The place was packed, and almost everybody was carrying a shopping bag, and they said, how can this be? It's the middle of the week, it's morning, it's bad weather, and people were buying. And he said, we're going to create a different experience. Traditionally, there's always been this mantra, location, location, location. I have a great location, I'm done. How complicated can that be? I just need to get a great intersection with a high traffic count, good ingress, good egress, good access. I don't need to worry about anything more for the success of my project. But great location won't save you anymore. You can have a great location, you can still fail. If you look at the Grove, the location is pretty good, but it's not sitting on a major freeway. It is on a corner of two important streets, but it's not on a major intersection. But that's not its strength, it's not its location. You could say, well, demographics. Well, a lot of the immediate surrounding area was sort of a more modest income. Beverly Hills is several miles to the west, and you've got Rodeo Drive. So why would somebody in Beverly Hills want to come to the Grove if they got Rodeo Drive right in front of them? So demographics was not necessarily the strong point there. What he did was creative design. It's very interesting. Every facade is different. There's a tremendous detail there. If you go to the Grove, you'll notice that there's not just one kind of hardscape down on the ground, that there's a lot of different kinds of hardscape. We've got Yeah, we've got some asphalt, but we've got some tile, we've got some ceramic, we've got some brickwork, we've got mosaic, etc. There's a lot of different kinds of hardscape. There's a lot of different kinds of light fixtures. You walk around the Grove, you don't see the same light fixture every 10 meters as you walk around from building to building. There's a wide variety of light fixtures. So this attention to detail is throughout the whole project here. I mean, if you have valet parking, you should really have a valet type of experience, and you're really treated like a very high-end hotel guest if you're valet parking there with very comfortable chairs to sit down in. The concierge desk, I've had clients go to the Grove and come back and tell me, the next time I go to the Grove, I want to stay at the hotel there, and I have to tell them, there's no hotel in the Grove. Well, yes, there is. I saw this check-in desk. No, that's the concierge for the project. How many projects do that? Not very many. So there's a huge attention to detail in the design. But you have to design for all of this. This is not just something you can retrofit. So the Grove has a great design. It has a great tenant mix. This type of project, and this is what projects in the future will have to do, they have to curate their tenants. You can't just send out a request for a letter of intent, collect them back, or whoever can pay the rent, fine, let's put them in, no problem. Projects that are successful like the Grove, and I like to point out the Grove, and I don't work for the Grove, and Caruso's not a client. It's one of the top 5 performing projects in the world in terms of sales per square meter. So I think that's pretty powerful. But you've got a great tenant mix. It's very synergistic. All the stores there are proven people pumps. They can bring people to the project. They attract people. They make their co-tenants on both sides of them better. There's a great attention to synergy in the project and placing your tenants. And he picks his tenants for visual merchandising. What are their visual merchandising skills? Not just, is this a famous brand, but it's a brand from 20 years ago? What do their storefronts look like? Do they make you go, wow? Because they have to make the customer go, wow. Today's customer is looking for experience. Remember that word from earlier? They want to be amused and entertained. And entertainment is more than just sitting in a seat in a cinema. It's the arrival experience. It's the departure experience. It's the experience of going to the bathroom. If you go to the bathrooms in your shopping center, do you go, wow? Or is it a kind of not so good experience? Ask yourself that question. Every part of your project has to be an experience for the visitor, a very positive one. They deliver this. And in addition to having great design, great tenant mix, the Grove has great programming. Great programming, what do we mean by that? Events, activities, every day of the year. Often 2 or 3 times a day. Most projects, they do something for Christmas. They bring out a Christmas tree and they bring in Santa Claus. Maybe they shoot off some fireworks on the 4th of July and they put up some decorations for Valentine's Day. We're done. That was in the past. That's not going to do it today. If you want to stay in the running, if you want your property to continue to be a performing asset, you have to think about programming. And a lot of projects in the past, programming was sort of an afterthought. If they had any extra time left over, somebody would think about maybe doing a special event. Programming is an integral part of operations at a project like the Grove or any of Caruso's other projects, Americana Brand or his new one, Palisades Village. Or if it's not restricted, you can go to Santana Row in San Jose, Bethesda Row in Maryland, the Domain in Austin, Kierland Commons in Scottsdale. There are other projects like this around the U.S. This is part and parcel of the environment now, this dimension of programming. And it's not a question of just money, it's more creativity and innovation. I mean, are you going to have fashion shows? Are you going to have athletic events? Are you going to have yoga sessions? Are you going to have Pilates sessions? Are you going to have music concerts? Are you going to have art shows, art walks? Are you going to have farmers markets? It's an incredible list. Are you going to have book signings, celebrity appearances? Are you going to have, there's a lot of radio and television programming that happens at the Grove. And you can say, well, why doesn't everybody do this? Well, the Grove was planned for that. You go to many projects today and they don't have what we call plug and play environment. They're not set up to do that. They don't have an electrical grid or a water grid that can provide the needed infrastructure services to any point in the project. So they can't have a lot of programming. It takes them a week to set something up and another week to take it down. Well, if that's the way you're set up, you're not going to have very many events per year. And your project isn't going to be a competitive project. If you want to bring in pop-ups, you've got to be able to bring them in quickly. You can't spend months constructing a space for a pop-up. That's why they're called pop-ups. They pop up quickly and they pop down quickly. You've got to be able to pop them in and pop them out. Food trucks are, in a way, a kind of a restaurant pop-up. Can you bring them in? Can you hook them up? You've got to have all of this kind of programming. And then I put pop-ups and food trucks in this programming mix because for us, that's what they are. So, what's your design? Is it world class? It doesn't mean a famous architect. Are you designing to world-class standards for the customer? Are you customer-friendly? Are you customer-centric? What's your tenant mix? Again, are you customer-centric, or are you putting in the stores and restaurants that your broker wants you to put in because he can do a quick deal, get a commission, and off to the next one? You have to look at that very, very closely. Today's leasing is all about curating your tenants and not just putting in anybody who can write a rent check. That's a lot more work. It needs a change in your leasing commissions and your leasing structures in order to enable brokers and motivate them to actually get the tenants that you really want in the project that can really help you. And programming, this is a full-time thing. You need to pay a lot of attention to it. And when I talk about programming, it's not just virtual programming, it's digital programming. What's your online profile? Do you even have an online profile? Do you have any selfie points? This is all part of programming. Because if you don't have selfie points, guess what? People are not going to be taking their photos of themselves and their friends and putting them on Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook and Twitter and all these other, YouTube, all of these other social media platforms. So to close, Erez, I'd like to say, if you're going to be in retail, you have to decide, are you in the game or not? You're either in the game or you're not in the game. You can't be half in the game. Or another analogy, you're either pregnant or you're not. You can't be half pregnant. So if you're going to play in retail, you have to make a commitment to do this. It's not something to do as a part-time job or to be an amateur in. If you dedicate yourself, if you're focused, if you listen to some of the things that we talked about here, your shopping center is going to do well and it's going to survive and be a performing asset for you. If you don't, you will find yourself joining the news headlines. There's a social media site called deadmalls.com, and it's got thousands and thousands of examples of malls that have died. And if you want to see what not to do, this is a good place to go to as well. But anyway, it's been great talking to you. Good luck with everything.
Thanks very much, Andrew. So guys, really what you guys have heard here is very, very valuable lessons. I've been involved in retail development and investing for the last 10 years or so. And it's a very competitive world, as we all know. Andrew is a true specialist. He is somebody that cares. He's somebody that advises clients all around the world. And really the important thing here is that it's, for you guys to take home is that retail is existent. Retail is about hard work today. And if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to put in the hours, if you're willing to surround yourself with the best there is, like Andrew, like hiring amazing designers, hiring amazing operators, brokers, etc., then you can really be successful in retail development and in retail investing. So please be sure to check out Andrew's website, which is spciintl.net, right?
.net, yes.
spciintl.net. If you want to speak to Andrew, if you want him to consult with you on a project, maybe you even have a portfolio that you're investing in different types of REITs. Andrew knows the REITs really well, all over, all the shopping centers all over. If you're looking to buy a shopping center, he could give you some really good advice on that. So be sure to check out his website, be sure to connect with him. He's helped me so much throughout my career. And I'm really thankful, Andrew, that you're here today with us and adding massive value to our viewers.
Well, it was always a great pleasure to see you again.
Likewise. Thank you.